Look further back. Perez heavily into the wall, collects one Haas, and then the second one has nowhere to go.
This year in Formula One has been insane. And since I'm new to Formula One and only started watching at the beginning of this year, I'm excited to learn more and bring others on the same journey. And so this video will be about all the things that we've been seeing go on this year. This season so far has been insane. There have been major car updates, having teams climb the grid. We have seen teams do well and then fall. We have seen crashes. There has been anonymous emails and major engineers leaving big teams with no prospect of where they're going next. There has been so much drama. So this year has been insane, and I'm here to wrap up all of it for you. So after all of the crashes and burns of this season, which have been plenty, the top 5 driver championship contenders are as follows. There's Verstappen, obviously with the lead at 219. Lando Norris right behind him at 150 points. Charles Leclerc 2 points behind him at a 148. Carlos Sainz has 116 points, and Sergio Perez, shockingly, is still at 111 points, even though his downfall this season has been insane. Now, the top 3 constructors contenders being Red Bull with 330 points, and Ferrari catching them at 270, and McLaren catching them at 237. So we have to talk about the wins so far this season. And obviously we have Verstappen with the most wins this season, which who's really surprised by that. But then we have Carlos Sainz, who won the Australian Grand Prix. So proud of my team there. And then we have Lando Norris, who wins the Miami Grand Prix. And that was very emotional and very exciting for him, given that it was his first ever win in Formula One. And then we've had Charles Leclerc, who won his Monaco Grand Prix, which was his home race, which was very emotional for everybody watching. Of course, we are going to have to come back to Carlos Sainz at some point because his indecisiveness has lasted so long, and I really don't know how much longer it's going to last. But to push that aside, we'll come back to Carlos. Verstappen has been having car problems, and they're slight. They're not major car problems, but I do believe that it started in Miami. He's been having a few, some trouble. And McLaren has been pretty steady, which is giving Lando the chance to catch him. And not only that, but McLaren has had an upgrade package, which makes Lando Norris the faster car. But it's not enough. It is not enough to catch Verstappen. It's not enough to pass him and keep the lead, because though Verstappen's car might not be as fast as Lando's at this point, he's still the better driver. He's been doing this longer than Lando, so he would be the better driver, and right now he's proving it. But will he be able to keep this up? Nobody knows. We're not sure yet, and I'm sure all the McLaren fans are praying for it. Me, though, I'm not so much, because I'm a Ferrari fan. Don't do me. I am a Ferrari fan. Now, Ferrari, on that topic, and Charles Leclerc had started very promisingly. We've been doing very well in the beginning of the season, but the problem is we couldn't hold on to that pace after Monaco, because the very next race, Canada was a pit fire, disastrous, shaking my head. Why did this ever happen? I hate Canada. Let's never come back. Disaster. Canada was a wreck for a lot of drivers. I think 4 or 5 did not finish. And the rain was a terror. But not to down on Canada too much, Mercedes got an upgrade package that had George Russell in the top 3 fighting with them for a podium spot, which was shocking given just how bad Mercedes has been doing all year long. So what I must talk about next on the topic of Mercedes is that crazy email. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, which I'm sure a lot of you do, there was an anonymous email sent to the admin of Mercedes, right? Which the basics of it is you're putting Lewis in danger, you're sabotaging his car, and you're not doing the right thing, right? Now, Toto Wolff took these allegations very seriously and is working with the police to find the person who anonymously sent this email and pressed charges against them for their, concern. Lewis. Now, the part that's ironic to me is after this email gets sent and lot, and I do mean a ton, of online backlash hits them, immediately, the next race in Barcelona, guess who's on the podium? Lewis's car is in top-notch shape, and he not only out-qualified, but outperformed George Russell after saying in an interview he does not ever plan to out-qualify George all season long. He said that, the fans go crazy, they go back and watch old race footage of this season and see that he is losing pace. He's doing great in practice, he's doing good in qualifying, he just can't keep that pace on the track when racing. So there have been so many TikToks and tweets and everything sent out about this. And not only that, but Mercedes refused to acknowledge that Lewis had gotten a award and then called George's podium award the first award they had gotten all season, and that just wasn't true. Mercedes admin and social media have been going through it. And so the next week, the very next race, Lewis outperforms and outqualifies George Russell. That's not only ironic, it's laughable. Now, I don't think it's going to last the rest of the season because they just did it to shut us up. Shut up. We've heard you. We understand that you want to do well, but he is not Mercedes' priority. He isn't, because he's leaving. I do think that they could handle him leaving a little better, right? And just because you're somebody's second driver does not mean that you have to be so far down, right? But nonetheless, he got a podium. It was very exciting for the Lewis Hamilton fans, and we are praying that they hold out and just let him get a little more podium time, a little more time to fight for the maybe a pole position before they decide to push him back into the background because everybody is shut up about it. But to my knowledge, Mercedes and Lewis have been beefing long before this year, and I mean going back to 2021, right? So it's very difficult to say, but this is definitely probably one of the reasons he's going to Ferrari next year, which I'm happy about because I'm a Ferrari fan. And if you're really gonna bring the best driver of all time to my team, who am I to complain? You know what I mean? So last weekend at the top was, of course, Verstappen, Norris, and a surprising Hamilton turnaround. We had George, and then there was Leclerc, and then there was Sainz. Here's the problem. Charles and Carlos touched their cars during the race, with some thinking that Charles, had that not happened, maybe would have passed George, right, and gotten higher in the points. But the problem is they have different accounts of what was said before the race. And Carlos, this is his last race with Ferrari in his hometown. So of course he wanted to do well. And Charles said a mean thing on an interview after the race because he was upset, emotions were high, and he felt like his points were taken from him because he is falling. Lando Norris is rising in the points, whereas he can't seem to get it together. He had car problems in Canada, and then they got the car together this last weekend, only to then be touched by his own partner, and then couldn't make up the points again. Not that their car was fast enough to reach the very top, that being Verstappen and Lando, but maybe he could have been a little closer, right? And I saw a lot of backlash for Charles during this time, saying that he shouldn't have said what he said, that, Carlos had the right to try and impress at his hometown, given that it's the last time he'll be there in Ferrari colors. He got a lot of backlash for what he said in that interview. Now, I'm thinking, and in my perspective, there wasn't much he could do to help Sainz to win this weekend because they were so far back and too far back. Their car wasn't fast enough to reach the top. They were not fast enough to touch Lando Norris. They were not fast enough to touch Max Verstappen. The best they could have done is pretty much what they did do, right? Do you think Leclerc could have somehow pushed Sainz to be faster in the race or helped him to somehow win it? I don't think so. I think they were too far back, but please let me know what you think. And on another note, let's talk about the mystery of the season. Before we move on, let's talk about the mystery of the season. Now, I'm sure everybody knows so far, but I'll explain again. Adrian Newey, he's a fantastic engineer. He is also Red Bull's engineer, and he has decided to leave Red Bull and terminate his contract as soon as possible. Like, it's not even in the question. He is leaving and he is running from them. They've done something bad that we don't know about yet, right? And he wants out as soon as possible. Now, he's not said where he's going so far. He could be going to McLaren, which we know he's friends with Zach Brown. He could be coming to Ferrari because he said he wanted to work with Ferrari in the past. He also said he wanted to work with Lewis Hamilton in the past. So that's Ferrari and Hamilton together. For him, that's looking like the dream team. For me as well, right? But we don't know where he's going. He could go to a smaller team and try to help them, rise the grid and, push their way through so they can no longer have to fight for a point. But as of right now, we're not sure where he's going. He could go anywhere. It's up in the air at this point. But he's not the only mystery of the season, because we also have Carlos Sainz, who is taking his sweet time to pick a team. We have no idea where he's going for next season. We don't know what he's doing, where his movements are. Everybody's waiting on him to pick a team. Now, everybody thought it was going to be Audi, since they're coming in 2026. They're going to make a team. But he turned down Audi, right? Everybody was shocked. He waited way too long to give them their answer. They moved on. So people are thinking maybe Alpine, maybe Williams, because it's looking like the bottom teams are his only shot at staying in Formula One at this point, because all of the top teams, that being Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, they have picked who they want to be in their teams. Well, Mercedes still has a slot open, but I hear, through the grapevine, that they might be picking a younger driver, one of the reserve drivers, that being an Ollie Bearman, a Kimi. You see what I'm saying? Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is the FIA have made new 2026 Formula One car changes. Okay, there have been a change to the car design for Formula One in 2026. Now, I'm going to read off to you what I know will be different. I'm not a big car person, not too sure what some of this means, but stick with me. Now, the car will have a movable front and rear wing that will allow drivers to switch between two configurations. There's the Z mode. This mode uses a specific wing angle to maximize cornering speed. There's an X mode. This mode puts the wing in a low drag profile to increase straight line speed, right? And then other changes are the front wing will be 100 millimeters narrower and have a 2-element flap, while the rear wing will have 3 elements and a no longer beam wing. The weight is changing as well. The maximum weight of the car will be reduced by 300 kilograms. The engine is also changing. The power unit will be split 50-50 between an electric part and a V6 turbo engine. The turbocharged engine will be reduced from 556 to 400 kW, whatever that means. Look into it yourself, not a car person. While the battery will be increased from 150 to 350 kW. The total weight of the engine is expected to increase from 150 kilograms to 185 kilograms. Other changes to the car will have partial flat floors and a less effective diffuser, and will feature a push-to-pass style energy boost to replace the drag reduction system, the DRS, which is the overtaking aid. So now we're going to talk about predictions, and I have none. I'm wanting to know what your guys' predictions are, because we have the Drivers' Championship, which is still in Max's favor, but could change and is looking like it will change, given that Lando Norris is quickly catching. We have We're only 10 races in though. We've only seen 10 races and we're on our 11th coming this weekend. The constructors, on the other hand, is a little more difficult because Piastri isn't keeping up with his partner Lando, and Perez isn't keeping up with his partner Verstappen, giving Ferrari the most points in the constructor, right? So Ferrari is catching in the constructors, but it's still in Red Bull's favor at the moment. McLaren's catching Ferrari, and if, and only if, Mercedes can keep the pace they're currently at, Mercedes is also in the question. Now, I'm not really sure who I'm going to give the Constructors and Drivers Championship results to yet. It's too early for me. Now, if it's not too early for you and you know who your team is, you know who's going to win, you already see it, please comment. Let me know who you think's going to win. I don't want to hear nothing about McLaren, okay? My sister is a McLaren fan. Y'all need to boost her hand too much. But me, I'm a Ferrari fan. So I just want to know who y'all think's going to end up in the lead. Who y'all think at Abu Dhabi will win both Constructors and Drivers Championships. It's up in the air for me at this point. But if it's not up in the air for you, I'd love to hear it. Now, the next race will be in Spielberg, Austria, Red Bull's home track. It's also a sprint weekend. So I hear, the Austrian GP might face a major disruption with intense thunderstorms, which could change the entire outcome of the race. But I wouldn't worry about that yet. It's just a little weather prediction. Don't be too worried. It might not even happen. Could pass right over them. Okay, so to wrap up all that we talked about Newey leaving Red Bull, which is a major decision and a major downfall for Red Bull. We've talked about Hamilton's car trouble and that crazy email they sent from Mercedes. We talked about Mercedes fighting for their life on social media. We talked about Lando Norris's speed on the track that seemingly came out of nowhere. But let's see if he can hold that same pace for the rest of the season. We talked about Ferrari's driver drama. We've talked about their rise and fall so far. And we've talked about the races. Now, if there's anything else you want me to talk about, please comment that. You know, the great Silverstone GP is coming up after Austria. Then I know people love Silverstone. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, please like, please subscribe, and comment anything else. Send this to somebody you want to get into F1 with you. I'm definitely going to be doing that. And I'm trying to get them on Team Ferrari. So I'll probably post a F1 update as well as probably like a movie review or something. Probably a show review on House of the Dragons next week. So I'll probably, force my sister into talking about McLaren or House of the Dragons next week too. So look forward to that too. And I'll see you next week. All love. Goodbye.